ब्रह्मनाथ शांति 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 स्वस्थ।
Hello students, in the previous class we discussed about the gaseous exchange in the lungs level and in the tissue level. We discussed that the gaseous exchange takes place in the lungs between the alveolar air and the alveolar blood capillaries, whereas in the tissue level the gaseous exchange takes place between the tissue capillaries and the protoplasm. Further, we discussed in the lungs level, whereas in the case of the transport of the O2 takes place according to the presence of the partial pressure. In the alveolar air, as the partial pressure of the oxygen is high as compared to the partial pressure of oxygen, in the case of the alveolar blood capillary, the flow of oxygen takes place from the high partial pressure to the low partial pressure. Okay, means from the alveolar air the oxygen flows into the blood capillaries. Further, we discussed in the case of the CO2, as the partial pressure of the CO2 is higher in the case of the blood capillary and it is lower as in the case of the alveolar air. That is why the CO2 flow takes place from the alveolar blood capillary to the alveolar air. Okay. Next, we discussed as in the case of this we discussed in the case of the lungs. Next, we discussed in the case of the tissues, what happens in the case of the tissue level. We discussed the exchange of gas takes place in between the tissue capillary and also in between the protoplasm. So, during the transport of the oxygen, the partial pressure of the in the tissue capillary is high, and in the protoplasm it is low. That is why the direction of the flow of oxygen from the tissue capillary into the protoplasm, whereas the oxygen the partial pressure of CO2 is high in the case of the protoplasm and low in the case of the tissue capillary. That is why we can say the flow of CO2 takes place from the protoplasm to the the tissue capillary. So like this we discussed that how the transport of the the gases of the gaseous exchange of the various gases takes place, such as your O2 and CO2. Further, students, we discussed also the lungs volume and the capacity. The instrument which measures the lungs volume and capacity is known as a spirometer, and also we discussed so many points under the lungs volume and also lungs capacity. So this much we have discussed in our previous class. Today, so by which we came to end of one topic, that is your mechanism of breathing, and the remaining portion, the extra portion, that is your lungs volume and capacity and the gaseous exchange. Always remember, if mechanism of breathing is being asked as your long question, you will start from the beginning. Okay, means it is consists of two steps, such as your mechanism, the breathing mechanism, and the the gaseous exchange, but you will elaborate only the mechanism of breathing. Okay, means inspiration, expiration, expiration, and the breathing rate, then the various regulation. Okay. Next, today we will start our second long question, and also very important long question, that is your the transport of the respiratory gas. Okay. First point, students, in the case of the transport of respiratory gas, the blood plays the major role in case of the respiratory, or the transport of the respiratory gas, the blood plays the major role. So we can write our first point. Blood plays the major role for the transport of the various respiratory gases, such as which gases we are discussing. Okay, always obviously in the case of the respiration we are discussing about the O2 and the CO2. Okay. Students, we discussed the physical activity, means how the inspiration takes place, expiration takes place. Next we discussed on the basis of the partial pressure, how the gases exchange takes place in the lungs level, oxygen comes and the CO2 is being eliminated out. Now we are discussing how the means we can say the gas are being transported, how the gases are being transported. So in that case your answer will be that the blood plays the major role in case of transport of the various respiratory gases such as O2 or CO2. Okay students, next we will discuss what is the direction of the O2. Okay, so as we all know that the case of the oxygen, it flows by passing through the respiratory organ. It passes into the tissues. Where the oxidation of the food takes place. As we know, the food is present, or the we can say the simpler food molecules are there by which they are exposed to the oxygen, or we can say oxidation takes place. As we know, after the oxidation, it means it as a byproduct it forms the CO2. So the CO2 is being will be eliminated. How? The carbon dioxide, okay, it will be released from the tissue. In the tissue, oxidation of food takes place, and as a byproduct CO2 will be eliminated. So what happens? From the tissue it will be eliminated by the help of the respiratory surface, and finally it is being released out. Okay, so simply this is the pathway how the oxygen flows and the oxidation of food takes place, and the carbon dioxide is being produced as the byproduct, and from the tissue how the byproduct is being released out. Okay, so now the transport of respiratory gases takes place basically as we discussed. We are discussing transport of respiratory gases, means first we will discuss the transport of the oxygen. In the next class we will discuss the transport of carbon dioxide. Okay, so first today we will discuss the transport of oxygen. Okay, so students, remember the transport of oxygen takes place by two ways. One as a physical solution, and second one in the form of the or we can say by the help of the hemoglobin. Okay, so transport of oxygen takes place basically by two ways. One by the help of the physical solution, or simply we can say the blood plasma. Okay, or simply we can say the blood plasma. Okay, I'll tell you what is blood plasma, don't worry. Or also by the hemoglobin. It is the respiratory pigment by which the oxygen is being transported. The major percent is, or we can say 97% oxygen is being transported by hemoglobin, but only 3% is being transported by the help of the physical solution. Okay, so first we'll discuss by the physical solution. Okay, first we'll discuss transport of O2 by the physical solution. Always remember students, around 3% of total oxygen, 3% of total oxygen is being transported, okay, as in the by the help of the physical solution or by the blood plasma. What is the blood plasma? See students, blood is a liquid portion or a fluid like substance in which obviously some solid substances are there, okay, or simply remember, suppose this is the blood, okay, obviously these are the liquids in which the various cells are present, various platelets or the cells are present. Okay, If we will eliminate these cells and the remaining portion, this liquid portion is known as your plasma, and 3% of oxygen is being transported by this blood plasma. Okay, so we can write 3% of oxygen gets transported by the physical solution or the blood plasma. Okay, or also we can say that the 0.3 ml of O2 for every 100 ml of blood plasma gets transported. Okay, so blood plasma means, your doubt is clear. Blood means, see, suppose this is the blood. Obviously blood is a fluid in which various solid substance or particles are being suspended. If we will remove all those solid particles or the substances, that remaining liquid like portion is nothing but your, these are the various cells. Okay, these are the various cells. In this liquid like portion, that is called your plasma or the blood plasma. Okay, and by this blood plasma, 3% of O2 gets transported, or 0.3 ml of O2 for every 100 ml of blood plasma, the oxygen is being transported. Okay, so what we have studied as of now, the blood plays the first point, the blood plays the major role for the transport of the respiratory gases such as your O2 or CO2. What is the direction? Oxygen by the help of the respiratory organs, it transport to the tissues where the oxidation of food takes place. Carbon dioxide is being released as the byproduct, where it is passed to the tissue, and from the tissue by the help of the respiratory surface it is being released out. Next, transport of oxygen we will discuss. Transport of oxygen takes place by two methods: by the physical solution or the blood plasma, and also by the help of the respiratory pigment, that is known as the hemoglobin. Okay, major portion of the oxygen is being transported by the hemoglobin, and only the 3% of the oxygen is being transported by the physical solution. Next, we discuss the transport of O2 by the physical solution. 3% of oxygen gets transported by the physical solution or the blood plasma, or we can say 0.3 ml of O2 for every 100 ml of blood plasma gets transported. Okay students, please note down. Now student, come to the transport of oxygen by the hemoglobin. First we discussed how the transport of oxygen takes place by the help of the blood plasma in the physical solution, around 3% or 0.3 ml per every 100 ml of blood plasma. Now we will discuss the major portion of the transport of oxygen takes place by the help of the respiratory pigment that is present inside the RBC, that is known as the hemoglobin. So we can say our first point, hemoglobin is the respiratory pigment which is present inside the RBC. Okay, hemoglobin is the respiratory pigment present inside the RBC. Okay, obviously the hemoglobin is the respiratory pigment by which it is being, or we can say the O2 or the oxygen is being transported. Okay, and it is present inside the RBC or the red blood cells. Next point, how much percentage of oxygen is being transported? So your answer is around 97 to 98% of oxygen is being transported by the help of the hemoglobin. So let's write our next point. About 97 to 98% of oxygen is transported. Okay, it's being transported. So our next point is, what is the structure, or we can say the structure of the hemoglobin is, we can say it is a spherical, or we can say it is a globular protein containing the iron compound. Okay, that is why the color of the blood is always, or the hemoglobin is here, the blood is the red color due to the presence of the hemoglobin. So we can write hemoglobin is a globular protein containing, or we can say having, globular protein having iron compound. Okay, having iron compound. That is why, as due to the presence of the hemoglobin, the color of the blood is, we can say, red in color. Okay, next point we can say, the first important 3 points we have discussed. What point? First, the hemoglobin is the respiratory pigment present inside the RBC. Second point, about 97 to 98% of oxygen is being transported by the, we can say, the hemoglobin. Okay, next, it is a globular protein having the iron compound. That is why the color of the blood is, we can say, red in color. Next point, we can, if we will go to the structure, we can see how the hemoglobin structure is like. Students, here we will see how the hemi is being formed. Here we will see what is hemoglobin, which is one monomer. Here we will see what is true hemoglobin or the tetramer. See, normally you see, don't confuse about the concept. See, first it is the pyrrole ring. Pyrrole ring means what? In the chemistry class you will read in the detail, or you might have read. So the one pyrrole ring means what? It consists of 5 carbon. Okay, that is why it is known as your pyrrole ring. 4 pyrrole rings combine to form the porphyrin ring. Okay, and the iron, or we can say the iron containing porphyrin ring, is nothing but your one hemi group. Okay, try to understand, don't confuse. See, this is one pyrrole ring having 5 carbon. Okay, 4 pyrrole ring combines to form the porphyrin ring. Iron containing porphyrin ring is nothing but your one hemi. Okay, one hemi. So what happens? Hemi is bind by the globin polypeptide to form the hemi plus globin. That is why it is called the hemoglobin. That is why it is called as the conjugated protein. Understood, student? So this one is a one, we can say, hemoglobin or a monomer having one, we can say, the hemoglobin, the structure. The true hemoglobin is what? Having the tetramer structure, where it is being, we can say, it is made up of 4 subunits. Okay, though we can say the true hemoglobin is made up of, we can say, 4 subunits where 4 oxygen molecules can bind. And as it is consist of the globin polypeptide chain, there are 4 globin polypeptide chains are present. 2, we can say, alpha polypeptide chains are present, and 2 beta polypeptide chains are present. Okay, and always remember that the hemoglobin, which is the respiratory pigment, they have the higher affinity towards the oxygen. So we can write our next point, that the hemoglobin have the higher affinity towards the oxygen. Okay, hemoglobin have the higher affinity towards the oxygen. Okay, next point, students, it is a conjugated protein. Why it is a conjugated protein? Why the hemoglobin is called as a conjugated protein? Because hemi plus globin, okay, consisting of the iron molecule or the iron compound, that is why it is called the hemoglobin. Okay, so we can write our next point, it is a conjugated protein. It is a conjugated protein. Okay, Why conjugated protein? Because it consists of hemi plus globin having the extra iron compound, or we can say the iron containing porphyrin ring, okay, which is the called hemi and hemi plus globin, that is what is called the hemoglobin. Okay, that is what is called the conjugated protein. Why conjugated protein? Means it have the, we can say, hemi is being there, the globin polypeptides are also there, and also the iron compound is there. That is why it is called the conjugated protein. Next point. What we have discussed, that the true hemoglobin, that is your tetramer structure, consists of, we can say, 4 subunits. Okay, so we can write our next point, that it consists of, or the hemoglobin consists of, or it is made up of 4 subunits. Okay, it is made up of 4 subunits. Okay, it is made up of 4 subunits. Okay, and also next point, you can also write that the 4 globin polypeptide chains are present, 2 alpha globin polypeptide chains and 2 beta polypeptide chains. So we can write our next point, 2 alpha, or we can say globin polypeptide chains are present. Globin polypeptide have 2 alpha polypeptide chain and 2 beta, 2 alpha and 2 beta polypeptide, 2 beta polypeptide chain. Okay, polypeptide chain. Okay, the globin polypeptide have the 2 alpha polypeptide chain and 2 beta polypeptide chain. Okay, so what we have studied till now, see, first I am telling once more. In the case of the hemoglobin, how the transport takes place, because it is the respiratory pigment present inside the RBC. Around 97 to 98% of oxygen is being transported by the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, it is a globular protein having the iron compound. Okay, so that is why due to the presence of the hemoglobin, the color of the blood is red in color. Okay, as the iron compound is present. Next, the hemoglobin have the higher affinity towards the oxygen, means it have the higher affinity, means it can have the higher affinity, means what? It can attach to the oxygen molecule, or we can say oxygen molecule can bind to the hemoglobin. So it is also a conjugated protein. Why? Hemi plus globin, that is called a hemoglobin, it is a monomer. Okay, that is why, and also the iron compound is present. That is why, or we can say the iron containing porphyrin ring is known as, or we can say, the hemi group, and hemi plus globin means hemoglobin. Okay, that is what is called as the conjugated protein. Similarly, the true hemoglobin, it is a monomer, but a true hemoglobin or the tetramer is, we can say, which consists of 4 subunits and the globin polypeptide, and the globin polypeptide have 2 alpha chain and 2 beta chain. Okay, diagram once more I am telling. How the hemi is formed? It consists of, first, the pyrrole ring, means having 5 carbon compounds, then 4 pyrrole rings combined to form the porphyrin ring. Iron, you can see Fe++ means iron. The iron containing porphyrin ring is nothing but a hemi. Hemi is bound to the next step. You serially, if you will go, this one is your 1, this one is your 2, this one is your 3 number 1, this one is your 4th number 1, this one is your 5th number. Okay, how the true hemoglobin is being formed? Lastly, the hemi is bound to the globin polypeptide to form the hemoglobin, which is a monomer, only one structure. Similarly, true hemoglobin means having 4 hemoglobin monomer, or we can say it is made up of 4 subunits. And obviously, the 4 globin polypeptides are present, such as 2 alpha chain and 2 beta chain. Okay, please note down. Next, students, if we will come to our next point, each hemi group, these are 4 subunits, or we can say each hemigroup. Each hemigroup binds to one molecule of the oxygen. So that is why we can say one complete or true hemoglobin binds to, we can say, 4 molecule of the oxygen. So we can write our first point. Next point, that each hemigroup, okay, this one is your one hemigroup. Okay, each hemigroup binds with one oxygen molecule. Okay, one oxygen molecule. So that is why we can also write that one hemoglobin binds with 4 molecules of oxygen, one after another. Okay, see what I am writing. One hemoglobin binds with 4 oxygen molecule, one after another, and this binding of one after another oxygen molecule to the hemigroup is nothing but your, we can say, the allosteric binding or the cooperative binding. See what happens. See, the 4 we can say hemigroup or the hemoglobin monomers are present. Suppose the oxygen will bind first here. Okay, so it will promote to or help the oxygen to bind to the second subunit. This second subunit, which it will help to bind the oxygen to the third subunit, and the third subunit will help the oxygen to bind to the fourth subunit. So this one after one binding of the oxygen molecule to the hemigroup is nothing but your, we can say, this type of binding is known as your allosteric binding. Okay, so we can write one hemoglobin binds with 4 oxygen molecule, one after another, and this type of binding is known as allosteric or cooperative binding. Okay, now if we will go to the equation, what happens? See, this one is your hemoglobin Hb4 plus O2. It will give rise to Hb4O twice. As the hemoglobin binds with the oxygen, that is why it is now called as the oxyhemoglobin. Okay, as we said, this is the first subunit. The first subunit, the hemigroup, is bound to the oxygen to form the oxyhemoglobin. This is one hemigroup, or we can say the hemoglobin monomer. Okay, this oxyhemoglobin, okay, having one oxygen molecule, will promote the other subunit to bind with the oxygen molecule. So we can write Hb4O2 plus O2 give rise to Hb4O2 twice. Further, Hb4O2 twice plus O2 give rise to Hb4O2 thrice. Okay, it will promote to help to bind to the other subunit. But Hb4O2 thrice plus O2 give rise to Hb4O2 4. Means having one, or we can say one complete true hemoglobin having 4 oxygen molecule, or it bound to the 4 oxygen molecule. It is also called as the same, the oxyhemoglobin. Okay, so what we see now, one hemigroup bind to the oxygen, okay, by which it is formed the oxyhemoglobin. Okay, this will further promote to bind to the second subunit. So like this, one after one, it is not like that 4 molecules are binding at a time. No, First it will bind to this subunit, it will help to bind to the second subunit, it will promote to bind to the third subunit, it will help to bind to the fourth subunit. So this one after one binding of the oxygen molecule to the complete true hemoglobin structure, this is known as your, we can say, this type of binding we can say the allosteric binding or the cooperative binding, and this is your, we can say, the saturation point. Okay, means the hemoglobin, the true hemoglobin bound with the 4 oxygen molecule, this point is known as your, we can say, the saturation point. We can also write this as a saturation point. Saturation point means its all position are being occupied, means no more oxygen can be bound. Okay, so next point, what happens when the oxyhemoglobins are formed and this oxyhemoglobin reaches to the tissue region where the PO2 or the partial pressure of oxygen is low and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high, what happens? It is, as it is being highly unstable, it dissociates and releases the O2. Okay, so and by which the hemoglobin becomes free and comes back to the blood. Okay, so we can write oxyhemoglobin is highly unstable and reaches the tissue where partial pressure of oxygen is low and partial pressure of CO2 is high. So what happens? As the partial pressure of oxygen is low, what happens? It dissociates, the oxyhemoglobin dissociates and releases the O2. Oxyhemoglobin dissociates. Okay, and releases the oxygen molecule in the tissue. And the hemoglobin becomes free. And the hemoglobin, or we can say by which the hemoglobin becomes free. Okay, and by which after that it comes to the back to the blood. Okay, if the equation we can write Hb4O8, you can write Hb4O8, it dissociates to, we can say, 4 hemoglobin molecules to 4 oxygen molecules. Okay, so this oxygen will be, we can say it releases the oxygen, and now the hemoglobin molecule is becomes free. Okay, so what we have read now, the equation is balanced, no? 4Hb. Yes, see what we have read now till now. Each hemigroup binds with 1 oxygen molecule. One hemoglobin binds with 4 oxygen molecule. This one true hemoglobin binds with 4 oxygen molecule, one after another. And this type of binding is of the oxygen molecule is known as your allosteric or cooperative binding. Equation Hb4 plus O2, Hb4O2. This one is your hemoglobin plus, we can say, the oxygen, means the oxyhemoglobin. Similarly, Hb4O2 plus O2, Hb4O2 twice, Hb4O2 twice plus O2, Hb4O2 thrice, Hb4O2 thrice plus oxygen, it is forms the Hb4O2 and it is the saturation point. Okay, means all the 4 oxygen molecules are bound. Next, The oxide dissociation, as the oxyhemoglobin is highly unstable, it will always want to be releasing all the oxygen molecule. So whenever the oxyhemoglobin enters into the tissue or reaches the tissue where the partial pressure of the oxygen is low and the carbon dioxide is high, what happens? It releases, or the oxyhemoglobin dissociates, by which it releases the oxygen inside the tissue. The oxyhemoglobin dissociates and it releases the O2 in the tissue, by which the hemoglobin becomes free. This is the equation. H-B4O8, dissociation occurs, 4 hemoglobin molecules become free and the oxygen is being released inside the tissue. Okay, please note down. Next, students, will discuss one of the most important short notes, which is also included in the transport of the O2, that is called the oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, so what is the oxygen dissociation curve? It depends on if we will plot the oxygen dissociation curve, then we will plot in the x-axis we will do the PO2 or the partial pressure of the oxygen mm of Hg, and the y-axis we will do the percentage of saturation. So what is the oxygen dissociation curve? See, the amount of oxygen carried by the hemoglobin molecule is affected by the partial pressure of oxygen. Obviously, the amount of oxygen, if more amount of oxygen is present, obviously the association takes place or the oxyhemoglobin formation takes place. Okay, so the amount of oxygen carried by the hemoglobin molecule is affected by the PO2 or the partial pressure of oxygen, and the percentage of hemoglobin binding with the O2 means how much amount of percentage of, or we can say, hemoglobin is being binding with the O2, that is known as we can say the percentage of saturation. Okay, students, so what happens if whenever we see the amount of hemoglobin binding with the oxygen, okay, that is we can say is the percentage of saturation, or we can say the amount of oxygen that is carried by the hemoglobin molecule is always affected by the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, it depends upon the partial pressure of it depends upon the partial pressure of oxygen that the association will take place or the dissociation will take place. Means what? It will form the oxyhemoglobin or it will dissociate. Okay, students, always remember, if low PO2 is there, or we can say the partial pressure of oxygen is low, then what happens? The dissociation takes place. If high partial pressure of oxygen is present, we can say what happens at that place? The association takes place or the percentage of saturation is being high. Okay, so what happens? Another time I am telling you, the amount of oxygen carried by hemoglobin molecule is affected by the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, if more amount of the partial pressure of oxygen is more, then what happens? The hemoglobin binding will be more, and usually the percentage of saturation will be more. Okay, if the partial pressure of oxygen is low, then what it will happen? The dissociation will be taking place. Okay, means releasing of the O2. Okay, by which the hemoglobin will become free. Next point, when the percentage of saturation saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, obviously hemoglobin binding with the oxygen, that is known as the percentage of saturation. When the percentage of saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted, okay, the oxygen binding with the hemoglobin, that is called the percentage of saturation, is plotted against the partial pressure of O2 when it is being plotted against the partial pressure of O2. Means partial pressure of O2 we are taking in the x-axis and the percentage of saturation we are taking on the y-axis. Then which type of curve will come? Then what happens? The S-shaped or the sigmoid curve. We can see here the S-shape or the sigmoid curve is being obtained, and this is nothing but the oxygen dissociation curve, this or the ODC. Okay, see what happens, students. In the two regions, we can say the percentage of saturation we can calculate in the lungs region, in the tissue regions. Okay, so as the percentage of saturation depends upon the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, as the partial pressure of the oxygen increases, the percentage of saturation also increases. What happened when the partial pressure of oxygen reaches up to 60 to 70? At that time 90% percentage of saturation is being over, or we can say the oxygen is being bind to the hemoglobin. After that what happens? It becomes a flat line, means no more oxyhemoglobin will be formed, or we can say very less amount of oxyhemoglobin will be formed. That is why the line becomes flat, and this shape is called your sigmoid or S-shaped. Then what is the shift to right and shift to left? See, as we are discussing in two levels, in the tissue level, in the lungs level. In the lungs level, in the alveolar air, what happens? The oxygen amount is high, whereas in the tissue, the oxygen amount is low. As in the case of the lungs level, the oxygen amount or the partial pressure of oxygen is high, then what happens? The percentage of saturation or the oxygen binding to hemoglobin increases. That is why we can say the percentage of saturation increases. That is why it becomes left, means it increases. Okay, but this oxygen dissociation curve shift to right. When it shift to right, when in the tissue region where the partial pressure of oxygen is low, or we can say high CO2 or the high PCO2 or the high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, high temperature, low pH, this favors the oxygen dissociation curve to shift to right, by which eventually low percentage of saturation. Okay students, so this shift to right is nothing but your Bohr's effect. Okay students, and also we have also drawn this one on the basis of the percentage of saturation and the PO2, means partial pressure of oxygen. Okay students, if we will do this graph on the partial pressure of oxygen, this one also PO2 mmHg, what happens? See, this one also partial pressure of oxygen, this one also percentage of saturation. As we know, the sigmoid curve is coming. If we will take on account the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, what happens? See, if the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high, means 80, what happens? The percentage of saturation is low. The percentage of saturation is low. Okay. If the partial pressure of carbon dioxide become much lower, means 40, then obviously the percentage of saturation also increases. Okay, if the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is much low, such as the 20 mm of Hg, then what happens? The percentage of saturation further increases. Means we can say, if low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, then high percentage of saturation. That is why high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, low saturation. 40 further, means the percentage of saturation increases. 20 mm of PCO2, this one is PCO2, then percentage of saturation also increases. Okay. If we will discuss on the basis of temperature also, this one PCO2, if we will discuss on the basis of the temperature also, what happens? On the high temperature, the percentage of saturation is low. If we will go to further, means low, little bit the temperature is being decreased, then percentage of saturation increases. If further more the temperature is being increased, to decrease up to 10 degrees centigrade, then what happened? The percentage of saturation increases. You can see here, during 43 degrees centigrade, the percentage of saturation is this much. During 30 degrees centigrade, the percentage of saturation increases. During much lower temperature, means 10 degrees centigrade, the percentage of saturation further increases. Okay, so this is nothing but we can say the oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, so what we have discussed, the amount of oxygen carried by the hemoglobin molecule is affected by obviously the partial pressure of oxygen, and the percentage of the hemoglobin binding with the O2 is nothing but the percentage of saturation. Okay. Further, when the percentage of saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against the partial pressure of O2, an S-shaped curve is being formed, or that is called the sigmoid curve, and that is nothing but the oxygen dissociation curve or the ODC. Okay. Then in the way we discussed in the lungs level and also in the tissue level. Okay, means in the tissue level it shift, the dissociation curve shift to the right. Okay, that is nothing but the Bohr's effect, and also when in the lungs region the dissociation curve shift to left. Okay, why it shift to the left? Because the partial pressure of oxygen is high. Why it shift to the right? Because the partial pressure of oxygen is low, partial pressure of CO2 is high. then the high temperature and low pH favors the shift of the oxygen dissociation curve to right. Okay students, please note down. Lastly students, we will have a we can say the theory part what we have discussed now. Okay, just what we have discussed that is being written on the board. Okay, first we discussed the shift to right means what? It indicates the dissociation, as I said you, the dissociation of the O2 from the Hb. Why? Because it is having the low partial pressure of oxygen. It occurs in the tissue level where low partial pressure of oxygen, high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, low pH and high temperature. Remember, as I have said already, I am not going to understand one more time. You have already you have the clear concept. Next, the shift to left. What happens? It happens in the lungs level. Okay, what happens? On the alveoli region, it indicates the association of the O2. Why association of O2? Because there the partial pressure of the oxygen is high. That is why the association of the O2 and the we can say the Hb takes place. It occurs in the alveoli, which is in the lungs region, where there is low PCO2, low PO2 means or partial pressure of oxygen, high partial pressure of oxygen and low temperature. Remember, in during the shift to left, low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, high partial pressure of oxygen and low temperature. Okay, that is why the association takes place. Simply remember, more oxygen, association takes place. Okay, less oxygen, dissociation takes place. See, low PO2, dissociation takes place. High PO2, okay, then the association takes place. Obviously, next, this shift to right is nothing but the Bohr's effect. What it is? In the tissue level where there is low PO2, obviously we said that high temperature and high PCO2. Also one more point, having high hydrogen concentration. These factors reduce the affinity of the hemoglobin for oxygen. This reduces the affinity for the hemoglobin for the oxygen of the hemoglobin for the oxygen. As a result, part of oxyhemoglobin dissociates. Okay, and the oxygen becomes free and it diffuses into the tissue. This phenomenon is nothing but called as the Bohr effect or the Bohr shift, or we can say shift to the right. Okay. These are the things I have already discussed in the previous slide. Okay, during the graph. Okay, this is just the theory portion. Okay, so first please note down. Okay, take a screenshot. Okay, this I have written just for your clear concept. Okay, so students, today we discussed or started the first long question, that is your transport of the respiratory gases, in which we discussed for the transport of the we can say the O2. It is being, or we can say the oxygen is being transported by the help of the physical solution or the blood plasma, which is consist of we can say the 3% of the oxygen is being transported, and remaining 97 to 98% of the oxygen is being transported by the respiratory pigment that is present inside the RBC, and it is called your hemoglobin. We further discussed how the pyrrole ring, then the porphyrin is being formed. The iron containing porphyrin ring is known as your hemi group. Okay, hemi, how it bound to the globin peptide to form the hemoglobin monomer, and a true the hemoglobin consists of 4 subunit of the hemi group. Okay, hemi group or the 4 hemoglobin monomer, which having 4 globin polypeptide chains, 2 alpha polypeptide chain and 2 beta polypeptide chain. Okay, so like this we discussed. Then we discussed the oxygen dissociation curve also we discussed. Okay, means in the oxygen dissociation curves we discussed the plotted the graph against the percentage of saturation and the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, next we discussed in detail how as the partial pressure of oxygen reaches up to 60 to 70 mm of Hg, 90% of oxyhemoglobin is being found, or we can say the percentage of saturation reaches up to 90%. Then it becomes stiff, or we can say become flat. Okay, then we discussed in the lungs level it deviates or shift to the left, and in the tissue region it shift to the right, and that shifting to the right of the oxygen dissociation curve is nothing but the Bohr's effect. Okay, when it becomes the Bohr effect favors during having the low PO2, high temperature and high PCO2 and having the high hydrogen concentration. That is why the dissociation curve shift towards the right. Okay, and in the lungs it shift towards the left, but during the Bohr effect, the shift to right, what happens? The oxygen dissociation curve shift to right. Okay. So students, we have discussed today completely the transport of the oxygen. In the next class, we will discuss the transport of the carbon dioxide. So that's all for today. We will meet in the next class. Thank you.